And with that, it leads us into our next speaker, somebody who is a real cornerstone of this community, being the principal at Barnstable High School. He grew up here in Barnstable, and when you walk through anything that's related to Barnstable High, there is all types of signs and symbols that talk about the importance of having positive attitudes. And that all comes from the principal at Barnstable High School, our next speaker, Mr. Pat Clark.
I don't think I need the microphone. Is everyone good? I coached for a long time, and I kind of have that built-in voice, so I don't prefer not to use the microphone. Thank you. Just a quick introduction. My name is Pat Clark. I just finished my 7th year as principal at Barnstable High School. I graduated from Barnstable High in 1990, and Dave Thoreau has been a friend since I was a teenager, and going back to the ECHO program connected to Our Lady of Victory Church and other things. So when he calls and says, "Can you come? Can you talk about something? Can we, stay involved in the HOW program?" I always say yes. Dave has always taken an interest in public health, in spirituality, in our community. So he's one of those people who it's absolutely impossible to say no to. So when he asks, I always say yes. I'm more than happy to speak. We do a lot of professional development around attitude, because in education, how you're showing up makes all the difference in the world. If teenagers are going to buy into you, if they're going to buy into what you're selling in the classroom, if you're going to maintain your student population, if your AP scores are going to be through the roof, if your suspension rates are going to be low, if students are going to rate on all the online, via social media and all the online vehicles, your school is being a place where they want to be. It really all comes back to one facet, and that facet is how are people showing up? What disposition, what attitude, what relationships, and it jives perfectly well with what Dave is talking about in terms of this program. So in a second, I'm just going to show a video, and we're going to spend a few minutes talking about a little bit of vocabulary, and then maybe ask a couple of questions, and hopefully you leave with a little bit of food for thought. But the idea being is, if we are showing up to all of our endeavors in our lives, whether it's the smallest tribe we have, which is our spouse or our immediate family, or it's the largest tribe we have, which is those folks we come in contact with all the time, whether they're here in our community or wherever we travel, if we're bringing the right disposition to all of those engagements, we win. And the people who we come in contact with win as well. And the other piece that is always amazing to me is that people don't do this as often as they should, and it's free, in comparison to many of the other things that we do in our lives that are very, very expensive. So with this video, the timing of when I first saw this video was very important to me. And going back to a very difficult day in the city of Boston, which they made movies about, with the marathon bombing. I was running the Boston Marathon that day, and I got to the top of Heartbreak Hill by BC, and I said, okay, if I put the hustle on here a little bit, I might be able to break 4 hours. I kind of went from being a runner to more of a shuffler. So I did put the hustle on, and I finished in 3:59:17. And then about 3 minutes and 30 seconds after that, bombs exploded on Boylston Street. And then, at that time I thought, how did this impact me? Well, at a training that I went to not too long after that, just before the end of that school year, a woman from Texas who was giving the presentation showed this video. And it has stuck with me ever since, just thinking, that day happened maybe there is no purpose for that, obviously, but the one thing that could come from that is having people think about how they can bring a positive energy into the world when they experience something like that. So I'm going to have Dave show a little clip, and then we'll talk vocabulary.
Location. Brought to you by the Conscious Leadership Group. Find them on the web at www.conscious.is. Animation by Graham Franks. www.grahamfranks.com. One question that conscious leaders ask themselves over and over is, where am I? To support leaders in locating themselves as they ask the question, where am I? We offer this tool, a line, a simple black line. At any moment, all leaders and all people are either above the line or below the line. Our location describes how we're being with what is occurring in our life right now. If we are above the line, we are open, curious, and committed to learning. If we are below the line, we are closed, defensive, and committed to being right. Stop right now and simply ask yourself, where am I? In this now moment, am I above the line or below the line? Typically, when people are below the line, they believe certain things about the world. For example, they believe there is not enough. It could be that there's not enough money, or time, or space, or energy, or love. People below the line also believe that their story about the situation is right. People below the line also believe that there is a threat out there. Something or someone is threatening their desire for approval, control, or security. And people below the line see the situation as serious. The deeper below the line they are, the more serious things look. People below the line tend to behave certain ways as well. They tend to cling to an opinion, find fault and blame, gossip, explain, rationalize and justify, get overwhelmed, and avoid conflict or pursue conflict for the sake of winning. When people are above the line, they believe that learning and growing are more important than being right. They believe that all people and circumstances are their allies, here for their growth. They believe that from a distance, almost everything is funny. People above the line live in curiosity, listen deeply, speak unarguably, question all their beliefs, and live a life of play. Now, knowing what you know about being above or below the line, where are you? One thing to know as you consider this question. We are hardwired to go below the line. Literally, our brain is programmed to perceive threat, and when it does, a chemical cocktail courses through our veins, and we go below the line. This reaction was designed to help us survive in the presence of a real threat to our physical survival. An issue for modern-day leaders is that often our brains can't tell the difference between a threat to our physical survival and a threat to our ego or identity. We react and get defensive when we experience a threat to our ego. So in many ways, being below the line is natural and normal. But when we are below the line, we're not in a state, literally brain state, of high creativity, collaboration, innovation, and relational connection. We're simply trying to survive. Leaders today can't thrive if they're in survival mode. So the first activity of conscious leadership is location, location, location. In this now moment, where am I? Telling ourselves and others the truth about our current location begins the great conversation.
Conscious leadership is a operation out of California that puts together these simple videos, 3-4 minutes. You can Google conscious leadership, and they do a whole variety of interesting things that we use for training at times. So I'm going to ask you for a quick exercise. Number one, I should not have killed the trees because I should have known Dave Thoreau, the most organized guy in Cape Cod, would have had a beautiful brochure put together. I have a little yellow sheet, and then I also just want to spend a minute with the stickers that are there before I go further. There are these Barnstable stickers here that we started using 7 years ago at Barnstable High School, and they started going out as gifts for our upperclassmen who made the honor roll. They did some community service or what have you. We gave them to a lot of the sports programs. We gave them to the scouts. People started passing them out. So if you see these on the bumpers of cars around town, which a smile always goes on my face when I see them, they started off as little thank yous or gifts. So there are a handful on each table if people wanted to take one. There's also, good educators are supposed to have a little lesson plan. I should have known you were better prepared than I was, Dave. But I do have a yellow sheet here with just a few notes. So I'm going to ask you to do something as long as you promise not to share what you write on this page in a minute, okay? The way I think we come to grips with this above versus below the line comparison, okay? I want you to think about, to picture yourself in the grocery store aisle. You take the corner with the cart, you look down the aisle, and I want you to think about two people right now, and I want you to write down their names, as long as you don't share this with anybody. Because this is a little mean-spirited, Dave. I know heart of wellness and all that. but two people's names. Number one, the person who you would be happiest to see in the grocery store aisle. That person who brings you joy. I'm psyched, you're going to jog down the aisle to chat with that person. And underneath that person's name, I want you to write the name of the person you would least like to see and chat with in the grocery store aisle. Okay? I'll give you 1 minute to write two names. Go. If you don't want to do the second, because it's difficult for you, I understand. So if you have a name or two which you will hide from everyone on the planet forever, I do think this is a simple way to get our head around, right? When you turn that corner, who is it you see, and you see Dave Sorrow in the aisle, and say, hey, Dave Sorrow, and you kind of jog down, how you doing? He gives you the half-man hug. How's everything at school? What's going on with your family? He's always upbeat. Or you turn the corner and you see that person and you go, oh, sweet Jesus. It's going to be a while here. They're going to corner me by the Cheerios and they're going to womp, 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 womp. The world is coming to an end. Right? And I think that, right, and this happens to all of us. So I do think that's just a little bit of an illustration of you see the Dave Sorrows always above the line, and then you see that person that you want to be away from. And you may even say, oh, I don't need Cheerios right now. I'm going some other direction. So the question really is, how are we showing up? And something I talk about is how are we showing up for our various tribes? And using that term, I'm talking about a small tribe of your spouse, of your family, getting larger, the gym you belong to, where you play golf, who you play cards with, your church group, and then Centerville, and then the town of Barnstable. And then people that you don't even know. How are you showing up for those people? And it's something that you try to be thoughtful about. You can't be in a tip-top mood all the time because things happen. And whatever that last thing that happens, it's natural for us to carry that to the next thing that occurs. The next person gets the wrath or the pleasure of your interaction. And by and large, you want to be that person, as it says on the bottom of the back of this yellow sheet, like Dave Sorrow, who you see and say, man, I'm psyched to see him in the cereal aisle. And hopefully we are that person when we are out and about in our community. So in terms of showing up above or below the line, the question we really should be reflective about for ourselves is, what category would all of our tribes put us in? If we ask our spouse for a moment of candor and honesty, you ask your family, you ask your co-workers, you ask those who you play bridge with, those who you play golf with, right? Where are you on that? I think it should be a goal for everyone, for those people to say, you're above the line for me all the time. So one piece to consider is, I think it's almost a self-induced, attitude is almost a self-induced ability or disability. And in many workplaces, right, why do people lose jobs? In many places, why do relationships come apart? People don't bring the above-the-line approach to all of their aspects of their lives, and things somewhat come undone. Parts of the expense of time and money on all sorts of pieces, all sorts of things that are commitment, it takes a substantial amount of time and money to keep those relationships up, right? However, if you are the positive one, and if you're asking those people around you to be the positive one, somehow things seem to work out. They always seem to work out for the better. So I'd ask you just a couple of things. One, be reflective of this. Number two, it doesn't cost you a dime. Number three, your quality of life goes up. Number four, your blood pressure goes down. Attitude impacts health, right, as we've talked about here. If we bring that positive approach, not only are those people we're interacting with in our relationships better, but we are better. We're better physically, we're better emotionally, and our attitude is better, and I believe it is a quality of life issue. And when we do trainings in schools, we talk to teachers and we talk to students, when you put 2,100 people under the roof of one building every day, Barnstable High School, you better be showing up with a flexible, dynamic, and positive attitude, right? Think about this. It's 220 adults and 1,830 teenagers every day. And some of you say, oh my God, how do you deal with those teenagers? I'll leave you with one thought about this. If you put 1,830 adults and only 220 teenagers under the roof of that building every day, do you think we would have more or less issues? More. A hell of a lot more. So people say, how do you work with all those teenagers? It's easy. Working with the teenagers is easy. We're not the easy ones. They're the easy ones. So in closing, I do ask you to give some long thought to, and I'm sure you're above the line folks. It's why you're here. You're here on an evening on your own time talking about self-improvement, talking about your community, your attitude, your fitness, your well-being, right? So we just need to bring that out and interact with the people who we interact with in that positive way all the time. I think it makes a tremendous difference from our households to our schools to events like this. All right? Guys, thank you very much.